Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Carol, the Thrifty Chic housewife. I hope you'll consider subscribing. In the description box below the video, I have all of my social media linked, and I hope you will take a peek over there as well. I have recently started a Facebook group for canners, so if you are a canner, please check out Canning with Carol and Friends over on Facebook. We are having a wonderful time over there. Lots and lots of wonderful, sweet people sharing recipes and talking about safe canning guidelines and all kinds of fun stuff going on over there. So you can go over there, you can learn about canning, you can ask questions, or you can just hang out with like-minded people, and we would love to have you. So I hope you will consider taking a peek. Speaking of canning, as I've promised you, today we are going to be making a homemade pumpkin pie with our home canned pumpkin that we did probably a month or so ago. We canned up some delicious pumpkin, and I promised you guys recipes using this. So today we're going to make traditional pumpkin pie, nothing fancy, fussy, or new. We're just making straight up traditional pumpkin pie, but we're going to use our home canned pumpkin instead of pumpkin that you purchase in the grocery store. You know, I'm going to just spoil everything for you with pumpkin pie. I'm going to give you the truth about buying canned pumpkin, and this is another great reason to can your own. The truth is, and I will link this article for you because it's a very interesting read. The author says, "I just found out canned pumpkin isn't pumpkin at all, and my whole life is basically a lie." So the truth about canned pumpkin that you buy at the grocery store is it's not really pumpkin. The article goes on to explain what it is, and technically it's a combination of different types of squash. Now, of course, pumpkin is a squash, but usually it's a mix made from a variety of winter squashes, butternut, golden delicious, Hubbard, and more. So it's a combination of squashes, not actually pumpkin. So I thought I would just throw that out there. I know when I read it, I was like, are you kidding me? And I've known this for a couple years and kind of forgotten about it. And then I came across this article and I shared it in my on my Facebook page, and people were astonished to find out that it's really not pumpkin at all. So if you're buying Libby's canned pumpkin, it's not pumpkin. It's a combination of winter squashes, but they're all delicious. They all taste fantastic. But just a nice little plug to can your own, then you know exactly what is in your pumpkin pie. So it just takes a few ingredients. There are different ways to make pumpkin pie, and everyone has their little twist. Like I said, mine's pretty traditional. I'm going to be using evaporated milk. Some people like to use cream or a combination of milk and cream. Some people use sweetened condensed milk. I like the straight up evaporated milk. That's my favorite. We are going to be using ground cloves, ground nutmeg, ground ginger, and of course cinnamon. The one twist that I am going to do is not really so traditional, is for the sugar in the pie. I'm going to be doing a combination of brown sugar and white granulated sugar. So that's up to you. You can do all granulated sugar, you can do all brown sugar if you'd like, but I'm going to do a combination of the two. I like both. I like the depth of flavor from the brown sugar and then just the sweetness from the white sugar. So I'm going to be doing a half a cup of packed brown sugar and then a quarter of a cup of just regular granulated sugar. We're gonna pop in a little bit of vanilla, a couple of eggs, and then the one other ingredient that I like to add is a teaspoon and a half of cornstarch. You're gonna need approximately 2 cups of pureed pumpkin for this recipe. So I'm using 2 pint jars. If you canned in quarts, you can just use 1 quart jar. And what I've done is I just mashed my pumpkin and then put it in a strainer. I drained it first. Drain off all your liquid and then put it in a strainer. I mashed it up, and then I've been letting it sit inside of another bowl to drain out as much liquid as possible from my pumpkin puree. So canned pumpkin is super easy to mash up. It's very soft by the time that you are done canning it, so just the back of a spoon you can mash it, and then I just I've let it sit for about 15 minutes or so to make sure that I've drained as much liquid as possible from my pumpkin puree so that I don't have a soggy pie. So there's that. So we are ready to get started. I've got my oven preheating to 425 degrees, and I've already rolled out my pie crust. I'm not going to go into detail here with pie crust. I do have several videos that include making pie crust that I will link for you. My homemade pumpkin or my homemade apple pie video has a crust recipe in there, and also my homemade chicken pot pie video has a pie crust recipe, and I will also leave below the recipe that I'm using today. Today I made an all butter crust, and it's just so delicious. Can't wait to show it to you. But anyway, I've already done the pie crust and rolled it out, so we are good to go. So I'm going to bring you in close and show you how to put the pie together. Okay guys, here we go. You want to, like I said, the pumpkin puree's been sitting, so it's ready to go. But we're going to start with 2 eggs. So we want to put 2 eggs in a fairly large bowl, and we're just going to give them a nice whisk. Then to my eggs, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar and a 1/4 cup of white sugar for a combination of 3/4 cup. Mix that in. Now we're going to add our spices. I want a 1.5 teaspoons, approximately a 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I want 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. I want a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg and a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. So yummy. And then we're also going to add a teaspoon to 1.5 teaspoons of our cornstarch. So we'll go ahead and mix that in. Okay, I'm also going to add about 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, just to enhance the flavor of our pumpkin pie. And then we're going to go ahead and put in all of our pumpkin puree. So pretty, such a pretty color. And we're going to stir that in. Whisk it in, I guess. We also need about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Almost forgot my salt. And then the very last thing is 1 can of evaporated milk. And I use full fat. Just going to gently stir all that together. So we're going to carefully pour your pie filling into your prepared pie crust. We're going to pop this into a preheated 425 degree oven for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'm going to reduce my heat to 350, and we're going to let it continue to bake for about another 40-45 minutes or so. So I'm going to pop them in the oven, and I will bring you back. Okay guys, just a couple of things about pie. Many people talk about how their bottom crust is soggy. My remedy, there are a couple things that you can do to relieve that. My remedy is to always bake your pie on the bottom rack of your oven. That solves the problem for me, hands down. I don't have any other issues with it. If you are still experiencing problems, you can try brushing the inside of your pie crust with an egg white before you pour in your filling. That will also help, but like I said, baking it on the bottom rack of my oven tends to solve the problem. If you put your pie in the middle of your oven, the top is going to get done before the bottom does. So I highly recommend lowering the racks in your oven to the bottom when you're baking pie. You also might want to slide a cookie sheet underneath a pie. Sometimes they can bubble over. I usually don't have that problem with pumpkin, but you may want to put it on a cookie sheet just to eliminate that. So I baked my pie on 425 for 15 minutes. I just reduced my heat to 350. So we're going to let it hang out in the oven until it's nice and done. It should take about another 45 minutes or so. The best way to test it is to insert a toothpick or even a butter knife into the center of it, and it should come out fairly clean. Okay guys, we are all done. I baked my pie about another 45 minutes or so. You don't want it jiggly or anything like that in the middle. I just use a toothpick. I insert that in the middle of my pie and it should come out fairly clean. Some people use a butter knife, so do whichever you prefer, but it should be fairly clean. And then you want to let your pie cool. Mine has been sitting for about 2 hours, and I prefer my pie cold, but I want to wrap up my video here. So it's still a tiny bit warm in the middle, but you don't really want to serve pumpkin pie warm. It's best, in my opinion, if it's cold. So let it cool till it's completely cool and then stick it in the refrigerator. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion, but I think it turned out really well. But let's take a peek and take a taste and see how we did. And of course, you can't have pumpkin pie without some whipped cream, right? Whipped cream on top. And there's your pie. Looks delicious. In light of the information that I shared earlier about it being what you buy in the can, what we're used to purchasing in the grocery store, since it is different types of squash, home canned pumpkin can look a little different in color. I don't think it's quite as orange as what you get at the grocery store that's already canned, but I think it looks delicious. So let's give it a taste. The texture is the same. And it tastes absolutely amazing. It's that flaky butter, all butter crust that I made. Really, really delicious. Like I said, it's still a tiny bit warm in the middle. I prefer mine cold. And I think that your pie is a little bit different texture once it's completely cold, but it's the same as what you would get from canned. But you know exactly what is in your jar, and we have real pumpkin pie, not squash pie. So anyway, I think that our canned pumpkin is fantastic. It tastes amazing, and it will be a great way to make homemade from scratch pumpkin pie, real pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. So I hope you enjoyed coming along with me today. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them for me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Have a great day, guys.